Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're getting the bottom end finished up on the YZ125. We got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Alright, I got the clutch cam right here. We're gonna slap this thing in. It's gonna be something just like that. You know, we got this magneto, whatever you want to call it. I think Yamaha calls it a generator. I'm not going to put any RTV on this little plug here because it's a two-stroke. This whole area right here is kind of open. There's a little hole in the bottom of the flywheel cover, so it's not a big deal. If a little bit of water seeps in there, try and line up the bolts with where they were. Someone replaced the bolts. I'm not quite sure why, but maybe they probably stripped out the OEM ones. And then I'm gathering that this thing, you got a little washer that's like notched out. Gathering that this is to keep the clutch arm retained in its spot. So we'll run with it so then the clutch can't wander out. Alright, same 7.2 I'm sure on these guys. Okay, we got the flywheel, cleaned it up a little bit. There's a bunch of dust on it, especially on the inside. You can see the pattern of the magnets in here. So it looks like the key is about right here. I'm gonna have to look up the torque specs on this thing because I only memorized a couple of them. Only the ones that it used a lot. And this thing wants to pop out. Got it. This tool is super sketchy, but it gets the job done. You got a little spacer for the countershaft seal. Pop it in. Don't have a sprocket yet, but I should have one soon. Just like that. Okay, so got a new one of these things. I was kind of thinking about trying to restore this, but it ain't gonna happen. It's all messed up right there. So we got a new one. Reusing the gasket for now since I didn't order a new one yet. I might not. Oh yeah, it looks way better than it did. That's kind of on there temporarily. It's got to come off again when I do the clutch cable, but I think we're good on this side for now. I'm gonna flip it over and get some stuff going from the other side. Okay, we got some parts over here. Polished up the kickstart shaft. Just gave it a little touch on the buffing machine. We're gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on the splines here. I took all this stuff apart off camera, but it's pretty simple. I marked an index where this gear was. It was right there. You can see that yellow dot. Not that it matters, but I did it anyway. Can't hurt. So we got that washer, then we got this spring. So with this spring, you got to get it. It's got to be like this, and you got to index it with that hole. And then you got to slide this little plastic keeper on and line this little notch up with the end of the spring here and kind of pop it on like that, and it's ready to go. Now we're gonna come over here, shoot a little bit of assembly lube where that's gonna go. I think that's probably how it's gonna be assembled. And then you gotta kick this spring all the way over and get it into that hole without losing a finger. Now we're gonna move down to the counter shaft. We got an idler gear. We got a little washer here. And we got a little snap ring, sharp side out. Make sure it's fully popped on. And now we're gonna move down to the shifting. A little assembly lube around here. Now you gotta line this up with the dowel on the shift drum. And that's neutral right there. And there's a dot, they make it easy. It should lock in like that. And we got a little bit of rad Loctite on the bolt, 22 foot-pounds. I always hate doing this step, but you gotta do it. You gotta shift this thing all the way to first, basically. And then you're just jamming up the shift forks to torque this thing. 22. At least it's not super high torque value. Okay, that guy's in there. Now we're gonna move back over here and assemble the actual shifting pods itself. So you gotta put the springs and these little dowels in these holes. Assembly lube on them. And then you gotta put these little gates in, rounded side away from the spring. And usually you can see which way they've been installed. Probably doesn't really matter, but it's gonna be something like that. And that. Make sure it moves. And if we go back over here, a little bit of assembly lube on the shaft, in the drum. This is all sitting in oil, so it's gonna be fine. And you put the little pin end away from the shift shaft. It should pop in, something like that. Might have to move it a little bit. Something like that, it'll find its spot, hopefully. I can get this guy in like that. It's easier if you can do it this way. Certain bikes like the YZ125, you have to kind of put this stuff all in at the same time. This one's a little bit easier. And there's an O right there for out. Couple bolts, blue Loctite, 7.2 foot-pounds. Now we got the most fun part. Hopefully I can do it with that stuff assembled. This thing's gonna sit something like that. Spring's gonna go like that. Order of operations is a little off these days, but probably gonna bite me in the ass. This might just work. Yeah, you're supposed to do this before you put the shifting assembly all in. Unless you're me, then you make do with what you got. 7.2 on this guy as well. And then there's actually a little seal right here I kind of forgot about. I don't think you can put it in wrong. I'm gonna put it right here, just like that. Got a little collar, it goes right here. Some more assembly lube on it. And then we got the main shift shaft. I always put some grease on the splines because it's got to go through those seals. And a little assembly lube. Pop it in. All right, so now I gotta get the clutch assembly going back together. I'm going to start with a washer. And we got a collar. And we got a bearing. Then we got the main clutch hub. I'll call it like clutch boss or something, I don't know. Gonna get this guy aligned. And I tuned up the clutch basket a little bit, filed all these, the teeth marks, that gets all notched out right there. Filed that stuff down and hit it with some 320 and a Scotch-Brite pad. So that should be good. This inner hub is pretty toothed out. And the last 125 I had to just replace this thing because the clutch wouldn't disengage. It was stuck. All the steel plates would get stuck in those grooves. You could pull in the clutch as much as you wanted, it wouldn't disengage. So I might have to do that with this one too. We'll see. I won't know until I get it in the dirt. And we got a little lock washer. And we got a nut, 58 foot-pounds. Okay, that's 58. Needs to go a little farther to line up, unfortunately. We're gonna call that good. Okay, these things are incredibly strong. That'll do, it ain't going anywhere. Now we got clutch push rod. It goes in like this. And then it goes way down there. Then we got a ball bearing. And then we got the push rod end right here. Going like that. And I've got some old clutch plates, and if I end up having to replace this inner basket, I'm gonna do the plates too. But we never know. These things look pretty cooked, so I'm probably gonna be doing it. But if you do the OEM or the book test stuff for the minimum thickness of the friction plates, I didn't do the warpage test, but the friction plates were in spec for the minimum thickness. That doesn't mean they're still good, but we'll find out. If all this stuff still works and has good feel, it saves me a little money. Why fix it if it ain't broke? Stuff's already getting oily, so I don't need to soak it or anything. I'll just hit these end ones with a little bit. I don't want to mess on the bench either. And now we got our pressure plate. Just like that. 5 springs. I like to always start these things by hand if you're gonna spin them with the impact. Same torque, 7.2 foot-pounds. And I'll torque this main crank gear in a second. I got a gear jammer showing up in a couple days, so I'll catch you then. Okay, I gotta rip down this clutch case real quick. There's a little snap ring, I don't even know what you want to call it, thing on this water pump shaft. Looks like it's going to be a bitch to get off. I honestly wish they just would have stuck to the regular style of having the nut on the impeller instead of this stupid thing. but this is what we're working with. And then we got a washer, and the gear comes off. Looks like there's a little pin down there. That's got to come out. Then another washer, and this whole thing will just slide out. And I'm not really sure if this thing is just part of the shaft. It kind of looks like it. And then we got a couple seals in there. I'll pull those out in a second. Now we got the, I think they call this the governor. Pop that out real quick. For the power valve, I don't think I'm going to rebuild this thing. I already felt these screws here. It feels like there's Loctite on them, so unfortunately I'm going to have to try and pull those out. Got a couple bearings here. And those seals. Got to replace the seals while we're in here. These have been known to leak on the YZs. I've had to do it before. And the other one's from the other side. Looks pretty cooked, so it's good that we're doing this. I'm gonna pull kickstart seal while I'm at it. And yard the clutch cover. Won't be needing these bolts. That's that. Stuff's pretty crispy. It's gonna get cleaned up, but we'll do that in the Cerakote video, which is already out, most likely. I'm gonna give these things a little bit of heat because I can't afford them not coming out. Smoking good. Okay, hopefully they'll pop now. That's one. That's the other. Let those things cool off for a second, and I'll take them out. And this thing should just slide out. And we got a couple bearings. What the fuck? This shitty ass tool. Okay, so I pretty much broke the Tusk blind bearing tool trying to get this bearing out. Basically, the part that is supposed to grab behind the bearing is too small and weak for bearings this size, and it was just bending out of the way. I even tried to modify it, but it just wasn't gonna happen. But it was a cheap tool and it works with most bigger bearings. You get what you pay for. Okay, we got it out. It's down there. Just took about a half hour in the oven at 400. So that's good, we got it out. And we're just gonna let this sit in here and cook all the oil out. Alright, we got the Cerakote done. Good thing it only takes a second. Looks killer. So let's get some seals thrown in here. We got the kickstart, shaft, seal, and then we've got a couple for the water pump. I have one of these OEM. I probably have the other one, but I didn't feel like looking. We got the oil seal down here. Make sure the lip goes towards the oil on this one and towards the coolant on the other one. Just tap it down until it seats with that bearing pretty much, and don't tap the bearing out. We're looking good there. And then this, the OEM ones, it's nice because they kind of pre-grease them. So this one, we got the spring side, it's going to be out, keeping the coolant out. And then this water pump impeller, I polished it up a little bit, definitely needed it. There's some baked on seal down there. I'm gonna put some grease on it. Got to keep this seal, these, especially the coolant side seal, nice and fresh here because it works hard. It doesn't get any support from oil. It's just coolant on one side and air on the other. And we've got a little tiny pin here. It's going to go through the water pump shaft. And then the water pump gear is going to index down with that little pin. We got a bushing here, washer, and then a tiny little circlip. Should pop in nicely. Got one more seal right down here. Alright, so now we've got this power valve rod. Kind of cleaned it up a little bit. It's pretty nasty, but it works just fine. Just doesn't look the best, and you can't take it apart, so there's not much I could do for making it look better. It's gonna sit something like that. And then right here, I think they call this thing the governor. Basically what you've got here is obviously gear. This thing gets spinning up. Got this spring here, and we've got some ball bearings down here. The ball bearings are heavy and they're gonna want to fling out, but to fling out they got to push this spring up, which pushes this washer shim stack up with it, which then this little finger is in, which then moves this power valve shaft up and down. Pretty clever, and it works real well when all this stuff's running right. So I think what I'm gonna do here, put a little assembly loop down here. This is where it goes into the bearing, and I didn't take this thing apart. There's really no need to. You can, but I think you have to kind of mess with this spring, trying to compress it, and yeah, it's just not really necessary, so I didn't do it. And I didn't look if you can get different spring rates. I didn't do any research on that. I know the KTMs have a little adjustment screw, which I think would be basically just adjusting either this tension on that spring or the throw of the power valve in some way. But these things run pretty good as is, so we're not going to mess with it. So put that little finger in there, and then you can pop this thing down in here. Gotta get those screws in there. I think I'm gonna put some Loctite on them, because there's no need for them to ever really come out unless I'm Cerakoting this case again, but let's be honest, I'm not gonna be doing that. And then just make sure that this thing is fully seated down in that bearing. It feels good. So we're good to go here. So let's get this clutch case back on. Okay, so the one thing that I still need to do in here is put this bolt on for the main crankshaft gear. The only reason I haven't done it yet is because I was waiting for this little gear jammer so I don't have to crush a penny, and put some Loctite on this thing. Can't go wrong if you got anything that's moving, that's rotating on a shaft or something in your engine, to put Loctite on it. All right, that's on there. All right, so I get this gasket. Okay, we got the OEM special right here, and when getting gaskets for engines anymore, I found that like the Tusk kits or the aftermarket kits, that it's that like green material, they just don't work. They hold the stuff in, they hold the oil in, but not really. You know, you go for a ride out in the dusty desert and you come back and there's always like some dust caught around the gasket where it was weeping. Or these OEM ones never do that. So that's why I always trust the OEMs. A little more expensive, but never have a problem with them. Some of the aftermarket, if they're that same like metal style as the stock, then they're good. And Honda's always got weird gaskets, so. Yeah, that's on there. It's good to get this thing sealed up, kind of. It's been sitting open on the bench for like 6 months. All right, so before I get all that torqued down, we've got a couple dowels for the water pump. And we're gonna kind of do all this stuff at the same time because it's all uses the same bolts for even torquing. Got some new bolts for the water pump too. Okay, that's that. And we've got 2 more of these little tiny dowel pins for the clutch cover. Just don't drop these into the motor and you'll be good. OEM clutch cover gasket as well. And here's that beautiful clutch cover. And hopefully I won't have to take this cover off again to do the clutch, but if we do, then I'll do. And then we just got the water pump cover here. And I'm gonna go up to the full 7.2 foot-pounds. Alright, so once I got them all torqued, I like to go around just one by one, pick a nice starting point, and make sure that nothing moves. Do the inner clutch case first. Okay, we're all torqued. I do want to replace this bolt for the water pump drain with the freshie. It's probably the last time I'm ever going to use this bolt. Alright, that is that. I think I'm going to get Kickstarter dialed in here. And then we got one more thing to finish this video off, and that's going to do it. Okay, one last thing here, I guess. Get the Kickstarter, and I just took this thing out, sanded down that casting line that runs up and down these things with a carbide bit. Then I hit it with the buffing wheels, and then I vapor blasted it. It's not the best, but it's gonna work out. This thing was pretty cooked anyway. You can see right there. There's that little dent. That was like a massive hole because they kicked the crap out of this thing. Okay, put that spring in there. We've got an O-ring that goes around this. And I like to put a bunch of grease on these things so they move super smooth. That's probably fine. Then we got a little detent ball. Can't go wrong with a little Loctite on the bolt. And we're gonna put a little bit of grease on these splines too, help it come off. This is just kind of a temporary. I'll take it off before I put the motor in probably. So that's as far as I'm gonna put it on. And then one last thing here. We've got Works Connection oil fill cap. Just couldn't be caught putting that old one back in, so we've got a real one here. And I think I'm probably gonna put oil in this thing too, why not? Okay, so I got 80 weight MTL for this thing. And I'm probably gonna put 700 milliliters in here since it's perfectly dry. Because when you do your gear oil change, a little bit stays in there. But it's perfectly dry now. And hopefully we won't have a puddle of oil under this thing. And now we can put this oil cap in. Always ends up upside down. Anyway, I think that is going to be the end of this video. Got this thing looking pretty good. I think next video we're going to be getting the top end done. So anyway, look forward to that soon. And we will catch you in the next one.